Oh, the annotated Old God book found in patch 10.07. Oh, now Therian's thoughts. Okay, I want to read this as well. Okay, I'm not calling the stream. Hang on. No, I do want to read this. I bet this is Discordian Kitty as well. Oh no, it's not. The Old Gods and the Ordering of Azeroth is not new. So this is a book which has existed as far back as Legion that you could keep in your inventory for a short while and then it would disappear. The Old Gods and the Ordering of Azeroth is even older. It was added in vanilla as a way to impart lore to the players. Patch 10.0.7 PTR data mining has discovered a new copy of the book, this time with the personal annotations of a reader. The flavor text of the Old Gods and the Ordering of Azeroth annotated suggests that the reader is likely Neltharion. That's definitely what I took from it. The text of the book is the same, but the annotations give a tiny bit of insight into how Neltharion thought and what he thought about the Titans. While we can't data mine page content, a few of players like Soul have found the book in the Zaskera vaults in the Forbidden Reach and have been kind enough to share. Good old Soul, nice one. Let's read it. So the top part of each page is from vanilla, from a book that was published in vanilla. And it's interesting for that reason. But what's really interesting is not even the annotated notes. The fact is, the interesting thing is that it canonizes this book. And it shows that the Legion version wasn't them pretending that this book doesn't exist in lore. I'll explain a bit more as we go on, and you'll understand. I'm sorry. Unaware of Sargeras' mission to undo their countless works, the Titans continued to move from world to world, shaping and ordering each planet as they saw fit. Along their journey, they happened upon a small world that its inhabitants would later name Azeroth. A note has been scribbled on the page. Pathetic! What sort of saviors of the universe fail to notice that their efforts were being undermined by one of their own? I'm of the opinion that this is Neltharion writing these notes as part of his descent into madness, you know? So there's an irony to that line, obviously, because he is doing that exact same thing. And yes, also taking, we've got to be very careful, like, exactly. So there's like multiple levels of, reliable or unreliable narrator happening here. And as usual, the WoW community is kind of ignoring that and taking anything that says Titans bad at complete face value. Or like, oh, the Titans aren't as 100% good as we thought. That must mean the Old Gods are the goodies. Never change, WoW community. Always stay very stupid. Sorry, that's harsh, but it's also true. As the Titans made their way across the primordial landscape, I include myself in that, by the way, they encountered a number of hostile elemental beings. These elementals, who worshipped a race of unfathomably evil beings known only as the Old Gods, vowed to drive the Titans back and keep their world inviolate from the invaders' metal touch. It is interesting that this book is from vanilla. So they're doing like, they retconned some of this anyway in Chronicle, but I like how this is repositioning this vanilla book as, in someone's eyes, Titan propaganda. Even though we're led to believe that... there's a really interesting bit later on. Hang on. A note has been scribbled on the page. Evil? According to whom? It was these Titans who maligned the glory of the Black Empire. So this person thinks the Black Empire was really cool. It's worth noting that if this is Neltharion, like he is literally he has made a deal with the Old Gods at this point. I wouldn't take his view on things like... I would just, bear in mind, right, that he's literally under Old God control at this point. The Pantheon, disturbed by the Old God's penchant for evil, waged war against upon the elements and their dark masters. The Old God's armies were led by the most powerful elemental lieutenants: Ragnaros, the Fire Lord; Therazane, the Stone Mother; Alakir, the Wind Lord. Wind Lord will never not be funny to me. And Neptulon, the Tide Hunter. A note has been scribbled on the page. They looked upon the most impressive empire in existence and hated they hadn't made it themselves. In a fit of jealousy, they tore it asunder. So yeah, obviously, we got a big Black Empire stan here, right? Their chaotic forces raged across the face of the world and clashed with the colossal titans. Though the elements were powerful beyond comprehension, their combined forces could not stop the mighty titans. One by one, the elemental lords fell and their forces dispersed. A note has been scribbled on the page. The titans do love to make themselves seem grandiose. History is, as always, written by the victor. Also, they did win, though. Like, history is written by the victor, but the history in question here is who won. Like, the bit of history that's being told here is who won. So, history is written by the victor, not the most in-depth criticism, to be fair. The Titans won the war. Well, the Titans would say that, wouldn't they? After all, history is written by the victor. The Pantheon shattered the old gods' citadels and chained the 5 evil gods far beneath the surface of the world. Now, this is interesting, because I think most people have taken this to have been retconned, right? Because obviously there are only 4 old gods. And I think most people had considered this retconned by Chronicle, and that this was not canon. But bringing this book back, even if it's an unreliable narrator, even if it's annotated by an unreliable narrator, like, I would say there are 2 unreliable narrators at play in this book right now, and that's awesome. But what that does is it canonizes the fact that there is a book that says there were 5 old gods. Now, that might not be right. It might not be true. One of my favorite things about The Witcher 3, literally one of my favorite things about The Witcher 3, is that there are lore books in The Witcher 3 that are wrong. I love that. I think that's brilliant. There are lore books in The Witcher 3 that explain the history, and it's just wrong. And I think that's fantastic, because it means that you don't take everything at face value, you know? And, you know, that one or both of these accounts could be wrong, right? Like, this could be written as Titan propaganda, and Neltharion is right. I'm going to say Neltharion, I'm just assuming it's him. I think it is him. Or the book could be right, and Neltharion could be wrong. Or they could both be wrong. It's possible, right? I would say, in fact, the most likely scenario is that they are both biased accounts. Yeah, and people yelling retcon at any piece of paper written by a non-omniscient narrator makes me cringe a bit. Exactly. A note has been scribbled on the page. Fools! The power of the elements was not so easily contained, nor could they bind the influence of the old gods. The peace the Titans offered came only through oppression. I mean, that is what the book says as well, in fairness. So, like, they are kind of like giving 2 views on the same event here. And they're giving the view that you would expect each person to give. I don't think there's anything contradictory about this page, to be honest. What is interesting is that the scribbled note does not say, fools, there were not 5 old gods, that's wrong, there were only 4. That would be interesting. It could be Iridicron as well, I guess, yeah. But Iridicron doesn't have a visage form, so writing would be hard, is what I would say to that. The reason I think it's likely to be Deathwing is because he has hands, and Iridicron doesn't. Sounds silly, but like legitimately, the primal incarnates don't have visage forms, and writing things in a book would actually be really hard. Like, no joke. Like, I'm not being silly. They do have tiny arms. They do have human-sized arms, but they're not human-sized. It would be very difficult. Yeah, Deathwing has got the tools for the job in a way that Iridicron does not. But magic is a thing. I guess. Maybe any dragon can visage, but the protons... I feel like it is specifically something that was billed as something the aspects taught themselves to do as part of that aspectiness. But yeah, whatever, man. Maybe they can all do it. Totally. The notes have been scribbled on the page, though. Tiny little dragon hands being terrible at handwriting confirmed, yeah. He probably had humanoid slaves he could dictate to. Yeah, I know, but I mean, yeah, okay, but the annotations are written in such a way that they suggest that it's someone, like, madly scribbling their rage in it. So, I don't know. I just feel like it's Neltharion. But you're right. It could be anyone. You're absolutely right. So yeah, the interesting thing about this is it seems to, by the way that the annotator, who is very keen to disagree with everything in this book, one thing they don't disagree with is the fact that there were 5 old gods. That's by far the most interesting thing to come out of this entire book. This annotator is disagreeing with everything they can in this book, to the extent that, you know, you can quite feasibly argue that they themselves are an unreliable narrator. I think you're supposed to think they are. One thing they do not disagree with is how many old gods there were, which is 5. Also that 5 were sealed and not plucked out and destroyed, exactly. And that's very interesting. It does seem to be setting up a new old god, maybe. New to us. The Titans empowered a number of races to help them fashion the world. To help them carve out the fathomless caverns beneath the earth, the Titans created the dwarf-like earthen from magical living stone. To help them dredge out the seas and lift the land from the sea floor, the Titans created the immense but gentle sea giants. For many ages, the Titans moved and shaped the earth until at last there remained one perfect continent. Isn't Gahun the 5th old god? No. No, Gahun was an old god that the Titans made themselves as part of their experiments. So he would not have been one of the 5 old gods explained here. He is like a synth old god. He is a genetically engineered old god made through experimentation. The author of this tome is either a liar or a fool. Were they truly ignorant of that which lies beyond the waves, or were they merely commanded to spread Titan propaganda? Does that suggest another continent? Does that suggest another continent beyond, like, original Kalimdor, which is now, like, all of the land masses we know of? This was before the Sundering? Not necessarily, no. We don't know when these annotations were made. No. Sorry. I'm not saying that for many ages the Titans moved and shaped the earth until at last there remained one perfect continent. I'm not saying that means there's another continent. I'm saying the response to that. Because yeah, this one perfect continent would be original Kalimdor, like all of the landmass that we know of. That's where the Black Empire was as well in Chronicle, right? No. I'm talking about the response, which is, were they truly ignorant of that which lies beyond the waves, or were they merely commanded to spread Titan propaganda? What are they talking about that lies beyond the waves? Because he is disagreeing with the bit of the book that says, at last there remained one perfect continent. And him saying, are they truly ignorant of what else there was? Beyond the sea? For me, that's implying there's another continent. That's what it implies to me. You know, the book has just said they created one big landmass, one perfect continent, which was just one thing. And the response is, liars. Did they not know that it wasn't, there was something else? Because Deathwing betrayed the aspects at the Sundering. It seems like these annotations were written while okay, but that's irrelevant. I realised that the person misunderstood what I was saying was the thing that was hinting at what I was saying. Sorry, like when the Sundering was, and this was written before the Sundering, completely irrelevant. And if this is Neltharion writing these, then this was definitely written before the Sundering, but we don't know that it was Neltharion. Like, I'm assuming it's Neltharion, but we don't know that for sure, so it could easily be written after the Sundering, these notes, for sure. But that's irrelevant to what we're talking about anyway. It says post-Old Gods, though, and the Old Gods are what split the one continent. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Did the Sundering happen after or before the dragons were uplifted? After. Yeah. So you had the Black Empire. Okay, well, okay. Chronicle. Black Empire map. This is what we know. What we think we know, whatever. This is what Azeroth looked like during the time of the Black Empire. Let's get a better map. Okay. This is a map of the Black Empire on what we call Kalimdor. Originally, one perfect continent already, right? And that's where the Black Empire was, okay? According to Chronicle, which we are led to believe is told from the Titan's viewpoint. But then this other Titan propaganda says it was different. So I know, man, the Titans haven't got their story straight. Anyway, Maybe the notes are referring to the Dragon Isles. No, the Dragon Isles are part of this landmass as well. The Dragon Isles don't like the Dragon Isles are here right now. You can see whatever land turned into the Dragon Isles is on this map right now. Then, when the old gods disappeared, the continent remained the same. The old gods disappeared, and the Titans took over. They built lots of facilities and stuff where they imprisoned the old gods. And that's when the Night Elf... First of all, it's the Troll Empire, and then that turned into the Night Elf Empire. And it was a Night Elf Empire that was based around the Well of Eternity, which we'll get to in the book in just a moment. And the blowing up of the Well of Eternity, which was committed by Illidan and Malfurion and Tyrande to beat the Legion in their big invasion. That's what caused the Sundering. So the Sundering doesn't happen for like billions of years after the Black Empire. The Dragon Isles were already an island before the Sundering. True. I take it back. Very true. But still, I don't think he's referring to the Dragon Isles. For me, this definitely brings up the possibility of there being a whole other continent. Only the possibility. I'm not saying it is. You know? I'm just saying, to me, this absolute... Like, they've literally said, the Titans created one perfect continent, and then the response to that is, liars. Which suggests that there was more than one perfect continent. To me, personally, that's all. At the continent's center, the Titans crafted a lake of scintillating energies. The lake, which they named the Well of Eternity, was to be to be the fount of life for the world. Now, this is really interesting, because this is wrong. We know this to be wrong. The Titans did not craft the Well of Eternity. The Well of Eternity is an open wound, caused when Aman'Thul plucked Y'Shaarj out of the ground. It's why they decided, and the damage that it caused when Y'Shaarj was plucked out of the ground by Aman'Thul was why they decided they had to imprison the other old gods instead of destroying them. Right? No, that's not correct. Why? What have I said wrong? That's the veil. You're thinking of the veil. Am I? I don't think I am. The Veil of Eternal Blossoms is the wound. Nope. No, I'm sorry, you're wrong. No shame, but I think you're wrong. I'm sorry. The Veil of Eternal Blossoms is where Y'Shaarj's heart was kept. Right? Yeah. Not the wound. No. You go grab your chronicle. The Well of Eternity is the open... I know this is true, sorry. I'm not dunking on you, Gashi. I like you very much. You're awesome. But I'm definitely right on this one. The Well of Eternity is the wound from where Y'Shaarj was plucked out and that's why they decided that they couldn't do the same with all the other old gods, right? Because of the wounds that it would cause. That's why they imprisoned the other old gods where they were, which turned out to be a really bad idea, but better than like plucking huge... you're wrong, Tali. It's not the wound, it's the wound. You need the right pronunciation. Very true. You've got me banged to rights. Where did they put Y'Shaarj after? Y'Shaarj was torn into many pieces by being ripped out of the earth, which is why his heart was in one place and other bits of him in other places. I know I'm right. I don't want to like hammer it down too much, but I'm definitely right. So we know that this is wrong. They did not craft the... I mean, I guess you could say that after, they tidied up the wound and stuff like that, and that could count as crafting the Well of Eternity, I guess. Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, as we understand the lore, this is not true. And this book is wrong. And the annotator corrects it correctly, as far as we know. The Titans wounded the world with their recklessness, then insisted it was done by design. Preposterous! It was the old gods who nurtured the flesh of this world, not the Titans! I mean, that could also be true. The old gods could be described as nurturing the world's soul, because they're trying to corrupt it, right? The Maelstrom is the wound. Well, the Maelstrom is the Maelstrom happened after the Sundering. Like it's wrong to say that the Well of Eternity was put on top of the Maelstrom. Like when the Well of Eternity blew up, the Maelstrom was like created, right? The Maelstrom didn't exist and the Well of Eternity was put on it. Like they ripped out Y'Shaarj and that's the hole that was left. But yeah, in this case, the person who is annotating it is correct, and we know the book to be wrong. As far as we know, right? You know? And it's possible for him to be right, whoever's writing these annotations, but also incredibly biased. And not really to be trusted in the things he's saying either. Both of these accounts could also be right if you're being generous with wording. If you're being generous with wording, you could say that, yeah, the old gods did, the Titans did craft the lake. After they'd ripped out the old god and caused the wound in the first place, they were like, oh shit, well, let's just make this a lake, and okay, that's fine. Right? Like, wouldn't be a lie, just kind of omitting some important details. Likewise, with the annotator here going, the old gods nurtured the flesh of the world, not technically a lie, as we understand it, because the old gods were trying to corrupt the world soul. They were nurturing the world, yeah, but trying to turn it dark and nasty. You know, like both of these accounts, if you're being, you know, nice about the wording, they're both true, but they're also both still bad. As twilight fell on the final day of their labors, the Titans named the continent Kalendor, a land of eternal starlight. Ah yes, the Titans' final erasure of the wonders that once existed. They even stole away the land's true name. The land's true name being Ny'alotha, I guess, right? Or, you know, whatever, like the Black Empire or Ny'alotha, right? Or whatever the old gods called it. Which is all super interesting. For me, the two most interesting points of this that come out of it are the idea that it canonizes the idea of a fifth old god, which is wild. And why would they do that? Because having the annotator not find issue with the idea that there are 5 old gods, for me, suggests that it's true. Who the fuck is that, and why? And there is, for me, there is a tiny hint or suggestion that there is another continent. For me, there is a scintillating hint here at another continent. So who is the fifth old god? Asmaloth, obviously, yeah. That's what the old gods called it. I mean, he says there's something beyond the waves. Yeah, that could be. Well, that could be. Like, what could that be? That could be another old god trapped beneath the waves. That could be the fifth old god. But the way it's written and the thing that it's responding to, you know, it's responding directly to the bit that says they created one perfect continent. And that's kind of implying that's all there was on the world at that point. I don't think Xal'atath is an old god, no. Xal'atath is like a member of whoever lives in the void. Don't forget, the old gods don't actually live in the void. Old gods exist outside of the void. You know? You've got void gods and void beings, but old gods are like creations of the void lords, specifically made to send out of the void as kind of like leeches to go and find world souls. That's literally why they're created. You know, they're scattershots. So they're not made like you go to the void realm, right? Ain't no fucking old gods there. Old gods are made specifically to shoot out of the void. N'Zoth trapped beneath the waves, not before the Sundering, no. N'Zoth was trapped where Nazjatar is, right? Which is on the site of where, like near enough where the Well of Fraternity was before it blew up. This is what I took from it anyway, Metal Bernie. I could be wrong. You know, they've never really clarified what she is. But the impression that I got is that she was from the void, which old gods aren't. I mean, they technically are from the void, but they don't live there. Whereas Xal'atath, yeah, Xal'atath's a void lord. The way I always see Xal'atath is she's like a gap year void lord. I get the feeling she's like vaguely important in void society. Like, if such a thing as hierarchy and privilege and stuff exists in like void existence, she's like a viscount's daughter or something, you know. So she's very powerful, And she's kind of on a gap year. She's kind of traveling. She's kind of getting into scrapes, going through different kind of cosmoses, going through different, like a void emissary. Exactly that. Yeah. I see her as a kind of, if you know your Lovecraft lore, I see her as kind of a Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep is like a cosmic traveler stroke trickster who's just like out to see what they can see, causing mischief, like, because they don't really give a shit. I've always seen her, like, from BFA, I've always seen her as Nyarlathotep. So look up Nyarlathotep. That's how I see Xal'atath. Yeah, a void emissary is how I like to put it as well. That's how I've always seen her. I might be completely wrong. That's just the and why N'Zoth imprisoned her in a fucking dagger. Who knows? Like Loki and Q from Star Trek had a kid. Yeah, I guess kind of. But imagine she was like a real fucking piece of shit. I get the feeling she's like a gap year person, right? Like going through like our reality and our cosmos, and maybe through the Shadowlands as well, maybe through the Realm of Light and stuff as well. It's kind of like, you know, when your mate Noah went to like travel around Thailand for a bit before he went to Oxford, right? That's how I kind of see it. And every now and then he gets in trouble and has to call dad. So yeah, those are the two most interesting things for me. The fact that it feels like they're building up to another old god, a new old god, and this very subtle hint that there might be another continent as well, but I'm not so sure on that one. The 5 old god things, I think you can take that as read. Now, one interesting question that comes out of this. We've been led to believe recently that Chronicle is written from the Titan's perspective. But Chronicle contradicts this book, which is apparently Titan propaganda, which just goes to show that what I've said about Chronicle being seen from the Titan's perspective, I hate to say this. I hate to say this, but I'm going to. It seems like I was right. In that being written from the Titan's perspective does not mean it was written by the Titans. Or even the Watchers of the Titans, right? Being written by the Titan's perspective just means it's written based on evidence, and the only evidence you found is from the Titans because that's the only evidence that's there. So it's not like... Chronicle is not written by the Titans. This book has more likelihood to be written by the Titans, right? Is the Chronicle a book that the characters in game are aware of? So, yes. Yes. At the very least, the Cosmos map in Chronicle is canon and a thing that exists in the world. Because it's referenced in Shadowlands, in Firim's Diary. Not Firim's Diary, the other broker. Because it's referenced in the Shadowlands book. Because the writer of the Shadowlands book, who is a broker, is like, these stupid mortals, they have a cosmos map, and it's wrong. Here's ours. And they show them side by side. And the one from the stupid mortals from Azeroth is the one from Chronicle. Exactly. It could be written by Medivh Chronicle, or bits of it could be written by Medivh, and bits of it could be written... So, like, the Bible, like, the New Testament wasn't written by Jesus. Okay? Let's assume everything in the Bible is right, just for the sake of argument, whatever. You know I don't think it is. Whatever. Like, the Bible was not written by Jesus, but it is accurate to say that the New Testament is written from Jesus' perspective. Does that make sense? Can we agree that? Like, the New Testament is not written by Jesus, but it is fair to say that it was written from the perspective, from Jesus' perspective. Like, everything in that book is shit that he's supposed to have said. Like, it is not inaccurate to say, in this context, that the New Testament was not written by Jesus, but it was written from Jesus' perspective. Jesus never even saw the New Testament. Okay? And it's the same with Chronicle. Just because something is written by the Titans' perspective doesn't mean it was written by the Titans. It means that all the information in it somehow, like, you know, filtered down from the Titans, because that's pretty much the only source we have. Does that make sense? So this whole thing of when Danusa said that the Chronicle was written by, you know, from the Titans' perspective, people read a lot more into that than. It's not accurate to compare fantasy written by some people who wrote Shadowlands to a holy book of any real religion. I disagree. It's actually, like, as I said, for the sake of this argument, let's assume that everything in the New Testament is real and true. The fact is that even if you think the New Testament is the word of God, it is not written by God. Okay? It's written by human beings. And human beings have different agendas. They have different viewpoints. They have different memories. Some of it was written by human beings who were not alive when the things that they are writing about took place. Some of it is written by human beings who weren't there to see the thing they are describing take place. So even if you believe that the New Testament is legitimately the word of God, it is not written by God. It is still written by many hands. It has, most importantly, been edited by many hands. Like, the New Testament is like half the length that it was originally because lots of books have been taken out of it and destroyed by the Romans, by Constantine, right? It's been written and rewritten and edited. Half of it we've never even seen. And I think that's actually a really good comparison to something like Chronicle, actually. Like, absolutely. And then it's been translated into many different languages. Yeah, exactly. The translation that we still use in this country, in the English language, is the fucking King James fucking translation. And if you think that didn't have a fucking agenda, you're very wrong. Yeah, absolutely. Like, the most common translation of the Bible in this country is still the fucking King James Bible, which is insane. The books that Constantine took out of the New Testament were the books of the Black Empire. Everyone knows it. Yeah, exactly. So actually, I like, all joking aside and not shitting on a religion, like I say, for the sake of this argument, everything in the New Testament is true. Actually, comparing the way Chronicle works and like how it was written and put together, it's actually very relevant to compare it to the New Testament. Actually, yeah. And especially the Old Testament as well, because that was that, but more so. I always think of that. I always think of the New Testament when people are like, oh, it was written by the Titans, Chronicle. It's like, no. That's like saying the New Testament was written by Jesus. Like, it's clearly from a Titan perspective, but the Titans didn't write Chronicle any more than Jesus wrote the New Testament, right? I think it's actually a very good analogy. That's what I've always thought, anyway. So, I mean, and this, if this is Neltharion, so this is interesting, okay? If this is Neltharion annotating this book, then it is pre-sundering, and that means this book was written either for Night Elves or for, like, just other Titan constructs and things like that. Like, who was this book written for? If it was pre-sundering, the new races of Azeroth, I guess, of whom humans were not one. Other dragons, perhaps, yeah. I guess so, maybe, yeah. Chronicle was written by the Titan Keepers. I mean, I feel like Chronicle was probably written by, like the actual words that were written in Chronicle, the phrasing and the structure and the binding and the publishing of it was probably done by, like, humans or dwarves or something like that. Or night elves. Yeah, some Kirin Tor guy. Like someone said in the comments earlier, the initial assumption with Chronicle was that it was written by Bran. And that it can be written by Bran, but still be from the Titan perspective, you know? I think people get really caught up in this idea that the Titans wrote Chronicle because they don't understand how language works. Didn't Odin say in that letter we had to emphasize the Titan power in communications? Yeah, but that doesn't have to be referring to Chronicle. That could be referring to this. Yeah, a compilation of books from Medivh's library. Yeah, I honestly think, like, all joking aside, using how the Old and New Testament is put together, and I'm only using the Old and New Testament because that's a religion that I'm familiar with. I'm not as familiar with other, like, religions and stuff, right? But, you know, how those books were pieced together and formed and written by many different people, but from one, like, supposedly one source and put together. Like, I think that's actually a really good analogy to use for how I think Chronicle was put together, honestly. Taliesin, my wife, says I got a little tighten in my pants. Yeah, the English monarchy didn't personally record the history of their reign, but medieval scholars probably weren't inclined to publicly go against them. Yes, so from that respect, it's from the perspective of, yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And people have been too narrow in their interpretation of what Steve Denuza said about, you know, Chronicle. And I think it's resulted in a lot of, this will surprise you, unnecessary anger, but also just like inaccuracy and just wrongness. Like, I think Chronicles, some of it will have come from some discs that were found. Some of it will have come from old books. Some of it will have come from other sources and stuff. You know, like, I feel like someone has physically put it all together, or some organization has physically put it all together. But I feel like, you know, it doesn't come from one source. I feel like it's been brought together as a history rather than like someone has sat down and written it. Yeah, but it's an all Titan propaganda. And here's the thing. It's possible to write something that is inaccurate and propaganda without doing it on purpose. Just because something is repeating propaganda. Like, if you are an explorer, say you're Bran Bronzebeard, okay, and you go down you've discovered a Titan vault, and you go down there and you find the discs with history and shit on them, and it's like the Titans ordered the world, and you're like, oh shit, cool, I've just discovered that. So you are then spreading propaganda, but you didn't come up with the propaganda. You're not spreading it because you're on the Titan's side. You're not spreading it because you're trying to spread propaganda. You believe it to be the truth because it's what you discovered and what you found. No one even came up to you and presented it to you and were like, hey Bran, look at this, what do you reckon about that? No, you found it yourself. So you're like, I've discovered something really cool here. So in that case, you are spreading propaganda, you are repeating propaganda, but you're not doing it on purpose. Yeah, see everything we know about human history. Yeah, exactly. So, like, and something can be inaccurate and saying that some people are good, and it doesn't even have to be propaganda from those people originally. Like, you know, it must be hard to kind of find a Titan facility and see how grand and like futuristic and advanced it is, and not be like, wow, the Titans were amazing. In that case, it wasn't even the Titans telling you that they were amazing, but the historian is telling us. Like, so for example, I bet that Winston Churchill would never claim to be a very good person. Okay? I bet if you had dinner with Winston Churchill, he's probably very aware of what a piece of shit he is. And he'd be like, yeah, done some really bad stuff. And then you take a book like Boris Johnson's biography of Winston Churchill, and that lionizes him, and that basically denies that he ever did anything wrong. You know, denies that he was responsible for any thing that ever went wrong in the world, or that, and says that everything he did was justified. So Boris Johnson has created propaganda for Winston Churchill that Winston Churchill never asked for and would probably disagree with. And Boris Johnson has done that for his own political ends. So he's created what is essentially propaganda for Winston Churchill. But I don't think Winston Churchill would like it. Winston Churchill didn't tell him to write that stuff, and Winston Churchill would probably disagree with it. Boris Johnson has done it because it furthers his own political agenda. And likewise, that could be behind some of the stuff about the Titans in Chronicle. You know, certainly is in the New Testament with some stuff. This idea that, yeah, it could be, it's on the face of it, Titan propaganda, but it's not necessarily the Titans that are trying to propagandize themselves. It could be used by someone for their own purposes, which are actually quite detached from the Titans. Does that make sense? Like, if me, I mean, this is basically what nationalism is, right? You know, you lionize and romanticize the history of your own nation because you can then work on that kind of sense of national pride and stuff to further whatever your own political kind of aim is at the time. I think Boris Johnson is probably, like, Boris Johnson was a journalist before he was anything else. Like, the dude is capable of finishing, like, a book, for sure. And he is so egotistical that I think he probably did write all of the Churchill book. And the book is so bad, I believe that he did write it, yeah. But Taliesin, did the Titans leave it there for that purpose of knowing, well, we don't know, Neverborn Lucky, and yeah, that could easily be the case. But what I'm saying is, the only point I'm making here, and I want to make this very clear, is I'm just pointing out that it doesn't mean that's definitely what happened. Because I think so much of the discourse around the Titans and the idea that they weren't, like, as amazing and stuff as you know, a lot of this literature makes out, assumes that it's the Titans lying to you. And I'm just pointing out how, for example, the Churchill biography tells you lies to try and make Churchill seem better than he was, but it's not Churchill telling you that. And likewise, there could be any number of reasons why someone might write and spread Titan propaganda beyond the Titans want you to think this. You know? That could be the reason, absolutely. I'm just pointing out the fact that, but everyone knows that could be the reason. I'm just pointing out the fact that it could also not be the reason. That's literally all I'm doing. It's pointing out that it's quite possible there are other reasons why this Titan propaganda is being written and spread. And it's not as much as a false flag. Not as much as a false flag, but just like, you know, it could literally be Bran misunderstanding something he read on a disc. Like, it could literally be that. You know, anything that's wrong in Chronicle could literally be Bran reading a Titan disc from the perspective of the Titans and misreading it, mistranslating it. It could literally be that easy. But no one seems to take that into account, and I wonder why. You know, it's so wild. Yeah, and what I mean is, like, not all unreliable narrators are nefarious. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Not all unreliable narrators are unreliable on purpose. Is that fair? Can I just say, I know that some people dislike the whole retcon, unreliable narrator stuff that conflicts with, like, Chronicle, but I adore it because, like you're pointing out for Boris, books are often bullshit. Stories are often bullshit. Everyone has an agenda, and why would they be any different on Azeroth? It's the most realistic thing in the game. I completely agree. I love it when the books in the game turn out to be bullshit. Like, genuinely. So yeah, this is very, very interesting. The big takeaways for me, maybe there's another, there's almost certainly a fifth Old God. And maybe there's another continent somewhere as well. I love that they're doing this stuff. I feel like they've been doing this stuff a lot more since Steve. I think this is one of Steve Danuse's little things. He loves shit like this. And you know what? I love shit like this as well. So I'm happy. This feels more like a Metzen thing. No, I mean, I think you're joking, but also, we saw how Metzen dealt with this. He just put out a new version of it that changed it. Like he did with Draenei. Like, it's actually funny. I know I think it's probably a joke what you said, but we actually saw how Metzen dealt with this book when Chronicle contradicted it. He just changed it. And I think Steve's way of dealing with this is a lot more interesting. Like, genuinely. And it's funny because, like, we literally saw how Metzen dealt with this exact book when Chronicle came out in Legion. And now we're seeing someone else dealing with it. And I personally think Steve's way is more interesting. Metzen could definitely beat Steve in a fight. And he's definitely got a bigger willy. But, you know, Steve News is a scumbag anyway, because, like, something, self-insert. Unlike Metzen, who would never do a self-insert in anything. So, when Sylvanas comes back, I'll thank Metzen. Well, I thought Steve Denuza was meant to be the Sylvanas simp anyway. Hey, Metzen only voices like 4 characters. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad I read that, though. That was super interesting.